प्रतीक्षा कीजिए।
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Hindu in its editorial titled Raining Misery writes, Bihar is struggling to stay afloat in the ongoing monsoon. Its distress can be traced to poor infrastructure and a lack of administrative preparedness. Even large parts of the capital Patna have been paralyzed without power and communications as the state government tries to drain its streets of water and critical rations are distributed by boat and helicopter. The rain has not spared the more affluent residents either. Those living in upscale localities, including the Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Kumar Modi, have been rescued. But the plight of people in a dozen other districts, many of them struggling with underdevelopment, is much worse. Across Bihar, there has been a significant loss of life and property. Scenes of similar distress have been reported from some other states as well, notably eastern Uttar Pradesh. The monsoon is expected to withdraw after October 10th, more than a month behind normal, and its overhang is consistent with the prevalent scientific view on the effects of a changing climate, extreme rainfall and drought occurring at an increased frequency. Normal patterns will become less common in coming years, according to the current consensus. The alarming outlook calls for a far-sighted national response, with the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change given the responsibility of coordinating the efforts of other ministries in charge of housing, urban and rural development, water management and agriculture, as well as state governments. The Economic Times, in its editorial titled Help Strengthen State Government Finances, writes, the states together account for nearly 60% of total government spending in India. They outspend the centre. Their finances matter to social welfare, capital formation, the bond market and to overall economic health. The 2019-20 edition of the RBI Study of State Finances advises states to lower their debt burden, 25% of GDP now to 20% of GDP by 2024-25. Their borrowings are budgeted to be contained at 2.5% of the GDP this fiscal. Political failure to collect user charges in the power sector has pushed the debts of state power utilities to the books of the states. Under the Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, interest payments have preempted a larger share of revenues. To lower debt servicing costs in the future, it makes sense for states to borrow in the current lower interest rate regime to retire expensive debt. The centre's debt swap scheme from 2002-3 to 2004-5 serves as a model of prepaying expensive loans with cheaper new ones. The centre should facilitate states now to undertake a debt swap scheme that will bring down interest payments in future, even while the stock of debt remains the same. This will help states lower their future revenue and fiscal deficits. The RBI pats states for maintaining fiscal discipline, but is dismayed at the sharp cutback in capital expenditure. The regulator concerns are not misplaced. However, states have little flexibility in fiscal expansion as they cannot borrow an extra rupee over and above their budgeted target for borrowings without the centre's approval. The Indian Express, in its editorial titled Making Amends, writes, as India prepares to counter the menace of plastic, there has to be greater stress on recycling plastic. If this is done diligently and well, there would be far less need for regimented crackdowns on the use of plastic. The reality is that modern life and commerce use plastics of many different kinds. To prevent the discarded remnants of plastics from choking the oceans or doing other environmental damage, you can either prevent their use altogether or collect and recycle every bit of plastic that is used. To give up plastic is to hurt, in particular, small traders and vendors. To recycle plastic also, there will have to be wide-ranging behavioral change. Fiscal incentives can play a big role in this. As things stand, it is far cheaper to produce virgin plastic than to recycle used plastic. The cost of what discarded plastic does to the environment is not captured in the cost of fresh plastic. The cost of sorting, collecting, cleaning and recycling plastic is captured in the cost of recycled material. This imbalance discourages recycling naturally. The solution is to use taxes to correct this imbalance and incentivize recycling. The tax on fresh plastic should reflect the environmental cost of plastic. The tax rate on recycled plastic should factor in the benefit to the environment recycling brings about. A higher GST rate on virgin plastic plus a cess along with a near zero GST rate on recycled plastic would make eminent sense. The chemistry of recycling is straightforward enough. This challenge is to get people to dispose of plastic in a way that makes it amenable for recycling. Sorting will have to start at the household. Refundable deposits on bottles and the like could work, but awareness of and commitment to environmental